Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Open Mic Comedy Podcast. I'm your host, Mark. If it's first time here, welcome. If a returning listener, welcome back. This podcast is here for everybody on the open mic comedy circuit, whether you're a comedian, an MC, a promoter, or even a tutor. Hey, even comedy fans who love spending time in dingy pub basements watching us tell jokes. If you're thinking I could do that, then this podcast will guide you on what to expect on the comedy circuit from those right in the centre of it. Today's guest has been known as Double J. He's not Jermaine Genus. He's not been banned from the BBC just yet. He's not Jenna Jameson. Ask your parents. And he's not one of the five. So please welcome to the stage. It's Mr. Jamie Jackson. Yay. Woo! How are you?
Yeah, all right. Cold.
Cold.
Yeah, it's very. I'm wearing my gloves. Look, I'm wearing fingerless gloves, like I'm going to ask you for change or something.
Why fingerless gloves?
I don't know. You know what? It's.
I've never understood fingerless gloves.
Oh, I love them.
You're cold. Cover your fingers.
Yeah, well, it warms your hands, and then you can put your hands in your pocket. Yeah, it doesn't make any sense, does it?
Not really.
It doesn't really make any sense. But I used to wear them a lot as a kind of fashion item. I used to wear like a suit with fingerless gloves.
You're not selling this very well.
No, but I really like the look of it. I mean, these are like tatty, so I haven't worn a suit in years now. But you know, yeah, fingerless gloves, it's my thing.
Cool.
Yeah.
Just to let listeners know that if you are listening to this, you can be watching this on YouTube as well and Spotify probably.
Is the camera meant to do that?
Yeah, the camera's meant to do that.
All right.
So you'll
talk about my face. Is it meant to do that? Yeah.
So you'll see some interesting reactions I expect throughout the whole of this podcast. So yeah, get over to YouTube or Spotify and have a watch instead of listening. Only if you've got time. Anyway, that's enough admin. How's it going?
Life or comedy life?
Comedy life.
Comedy life. You caught me on a weird tip. You've caught me on a really weird period in comedy because I've been doing it 6 years now, right? 4.5 really, if you kind of count the pandemic.
I was going to say 6 years takes you back to 2018.
2018. August 2018 was my first gig, yeah. And I then did one gig in 12 months during the pandemic.
Yeah.
And then did a few others in the next year. I mean, I've got them all listed. I can't remember exactly when and where. But anyway, the pandemic kind of wiped out a big chunk of my development. I'm like a stunted development child. Yeah. And then for the last kind of 4-ish years, I've been hitting it relatively hard. Not right. Yeah. I say that. You see people doing like 30 gigs a month. What's that about?
Yeah.
Yeah. Not me.
They've got no family.
They don't have a wife, they don't have kids, and they probably don't have a fucking soul-sucking corporate job.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah, you're not meant to admit this as a comedian. You're meant to say that, this is what I do. But no, I have the man on my back. Yeah.
So how did you get into it? What made you go 6 years ago, I'm going to try and get on stage and tell some jokes?
Because same as everyone else, I've always wanted to do it. Always wanted to do it. I used to play music in bands. And one of my favourite bits was talking to the audience in between.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it was like, oh. And then I remember I was in a band and we were playing a gig in Dublin Castle and I was being kind of like a little bit dry and witty. But I was destroying, mate. I was just being like kind of like a little bit like humorous between the songs. And I was like, this is fucking brilliant. Like I didn't want to play the next song. I was like, this is amazing. Yeah. And then I turned 40 and I was like, fuck me. Life is so short. I've got to do it.
Yeah.
It's a madness. It's an impulse. There's no logic to it at all. It's probably also something to do with ego.
Yeah, I think some people it is, yeah. It's a weird one, isn't it? Because you do have that. You see a lot of people on stage and a lot of people have that feeling, I could do that. Because it looks so easy. If you see somebody doing something good, you think, God, that's fucking easy. And then when you see somebody doing it badly, you're like, oh, that looks so hard. And I always think about this. You know, the X Factor used to be presented by, oh, God, what was her name? Kate somebody? Kate Thornton?
No, blonde woman.
Kat Daly?
No.
God.
We'll have to Google it later. But anyway, and then Dermot O'Leary took over.
Yeah.
And he was like, supersonically good at his job. And then I think, who's that really annoying punchball guy? What's he called? Ollie Murs. Ollie Murs then took over from Dermot O'Leary for a bit.
Yeah.
And the drop in quality was significant. And when you watched Dermot O'Leary do it, you were like, oh yeah, I could just present. It's just talking. That's easy.
Yeah.
That's all I do every day. And then when you watch Ollie Murs and it getting a little bit stressful, you're like, oh, fuck this. I wouldn't want that job. So yeah, you do. You watch the big names and you think, I could do that.
It's a weird one because you look at people like that are good and you go, they've made it look easy. And then you look at people that are shit and you go, I can do better. You just end up in it anyway.
Oh yeah, really shit. Yeah, really shit. You're like, I could fucking do way better than this.
Yeah.
And then you have gigs which are really shit, and you're like, oh no, I'm not way better than this. Yeah, because I've had a tough January. Is what I'm trying to say. I've had a tough comedy January. There's been 2 lovely gigs in it, but the rest of them, I've just been stinking up the place, mate. I've been around London and the home counties, just fucking ruining people's nights. It's been awful.
Let's go back a little bit. You talk about playing in bands. What type of music?
The type of music that you don't need so much talent for. So alt rock, folk music.
Okay.
When I got better, I did a lot of finger picking and acoustic stuff in folk bands, very heartfelt stuff with violins and things. But mostly it's been like rock bands, punk bands, covering Nirvana songs, playing Molly's Lips, which is I know that's not their song, that's a cover as well, but that's just 2 chords. So when you're 16, you're like, check this out.
Yeah.
So, but then you gradually, it's like comedy, you gradually get better and better and better. But just like comedy, 0 success, 0 progression. It's just like people say to me, friends who I know from music, they go, oh, you're doing comedy now. And I'm like, listen, the comedy circuit, like the low-level comedy circuit, is as dispiriting and unglamorous and awful as it is with bands. There's no glory in it. It's just earning your dues and eating shit and being bored and questioning your life. I'm sorry, I've come on here. I should be. People are going to want to listen to this and go, "Yeah, comedy," but I'm on a negative tip, and so I don't want to be too negative, but I do want to be real about the ups and downs.
I've had guests on here before that have come on and said, I'm not sure I've got anything to offer. I'm really not feeling it at the moment. And then they've come away from this and then gone, feel a little bit invigorated, which is quite nice.
Yeah. No, I'm feeling it, but I'm feeling angry.
Yeah.
I'm feeling angry and despondent about it all. I actually am almost at the point. I had a really bad gig on Wednesday for various reasons. I did some new material and they didn't want that, but also I kind of forgot a lot of it and I was having to look at my book. And when I look back on the video, I video almost every gig. That's a tip, video every gig. And I often watch it without the sound on so you can see how you're behaving, because
That's interesting.
Yeah, it's really important to understand your body language, because sometimes you'll watch yourself back and you're standing too far back on the stage because you're almost a bit scared. Yep. Or you're not smiling, you're frowning a lot, and you don't want that. And I'm at the point now where I look back at that terrible. Like I actually tweeted something like, I had such a bad gig. It will go down as the biggest peacetime bombing on UK soil. Right? So I was just like, fuck it hell. But if you look at the video, if you look at parts of the video, it actually looks like I'm doing great, because I'm chatting to the audience and I'm smiling for bits of it and I'm flailing my hands around, and it's like now at this, because I've been doing it for enough time, I don't eat shit as in it goes silent and it gets weird and all that. I eat shit in the sense that I get shouty and it gets weird and people still aren't laughing, but I'm more confident, I'm much more confident on stage, because it's like, well, I've been on stage so much that it's not the nerves which are a problem anymore. It's fucking actually doing the craft. That's the bit which I seem to have forgotten how to do it, is what I'm saying, Mark.
Fair enough. So how many gigs have you done now then?
Not that many for 6 years. I've done about 210.
Okay.
I went through my gig list, the other day. And this is what we were talking about earlier before the podcast we start recording it, is I feel like I move at my own pace. Yeah. And I do feel a lot like I will learn a lot between one gig and another. If I've got one gig in a week and then I've got another gig in 8 days' time or whatever, I feel like that's a nice space for me to adjust and learn. Whereas, I don't know, people, good luck to them if they can do it, but people who do like 4 gigs a week every week, I've done that before. I don't have the headspace to go adjust and absorb and think about what went right and what went wrong. You're just kind of on a treadmill of gigging.
I think the trying to get as many gigs in a row is important in the early stages when you're finding that your feet and getting to grips with being on stage and getting that comfort level.
Right. Yeah,
then
that's
you
right.
can start picking up the little things that you're doing wrong, and you can adjust those little things. Whereas when you start, so if you in your early days, if you end up doing the gig and you don't do another one for 7 days, the one from 7 days ago that you think
May as well have not existed.
yeah, because it's day one all over again.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things I found the hardest to do, is trying to get to that point where I'm taking the little bit of knowledge I've got from that one and using it in the next one. But because the gap's so long, and it's one of those things where I think you've got to be regimental when you're going to rehearse and stuff like that. I don't know about you, if you rehearse at home, I really should, but I don't. I get so self-conscious even when I'm on my own. It's really weird.
Really? No, I rehearse all the time on my own. And by that I mean wanking, obviously. just to say the punchline. Yeah, no, I tell you, here's a tip as well. Is I find going for a walk is amazing because your brain starts moving.
Yeah.
You're out in nature, it's exercise and all of that. You start feeling great and ideas start flowing to you. And then what I will do, I mean, I've got 2 dogs and I walk them every day. I will do my set or work on an idea or a premise, and I'll just keep doing it and I'll keep doing it and I'll keep doing it. And slowly other angles pop in and you're like, oh, hang on a minute. Or what about that? Or what about that? Or a callback comes in and you're like, oh, fuck yeah. And you're in a bloody field. No one's around.
Yeah.
So, except my dogs, they're like, can you shut up?
This comes from being the comfort on stage, is when you're doing your thing, like walking the dogs or whatever, and you're just running through your set in your head or whatever, or you're just talking not really out loud and projecting yourself. Everything sounds perfect. As soon as you put a microphone in your hand and you get on stage and you're on the wooden floor, you're like,
Well, one of my first gigs, I opened with a joke where I was like, "This is going to smash," and my planning was open that with that joke, and then whilst everyone's in fucking floods of tears, move the mic stand, and I said the joke, and it just took like a silent room. People were like, "What are you even talking about?"
Yeah,
and then, but because I planned it out in my head what to do, there was just about 5 seconds of silence where I was like slow, dry swallowing.
Yeah.
Just moving that over. And then anyway, and you're like, fuck. But when you do it in your bedroom or you're doing it on a dog walk or whatever, you're nailing it.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I do it when you're lying in bed and just can't sleep and you start going, oh, I should do that bit. You go, oh, yeah, run to that. That's a really good delivery, that is. And you go, fuck, I'm delivering it to my brain. And my brain's going, you're perfectly well edited.
Yeah, yeah. And
because you haven't used this thing at the bottom, above your chin and below your nose.
Oh, I do speak out. No, I do speak out loud.
Yeah.
All the time. I have to say it out loud, otherwise it doesn't work. TikTok's a great one for that. I will put just a premise on TikTok, and then if it catches or it gets enough likes, I'm like, all right, there's something in that.
Yeah.
And TikTok's like lighter fuel. It's just every video it goes and then it disappears. It goes and it disappears, or it does with me. And so you can just do the churn of putting out content. And if there is a seed of an idea, it does better than the others. It's a good barometer.
I've spoken to quite a few people on this that seem to use social media as their idea base. It's a really good thing to do.
Yeah,
because you can be sitting there going, "This is a really good idea," until you said it out loud. But you don't want to, the first time to saying it out loud on a stage and it absolutely flops. If you put it out on social media and you get like feedback, oh, this is all right.
Yeah, it's a good base, but I don't think. See, this is interesting. I guess we could talk about this. There's a lot of comedians who are very heavily into social media, and they'll do sketches and they'll be popular on social media.
Yeah,
and that's cool because they probably end up making money off of it and stuff. But to me, I've always wanted to be a purist. I've always wanted to be the guy who goes on at a club as well, not like, I don't know. There's other places you can do. Basically, I want to be a good club comic, is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
And I've always wanted to. I mean, Jongleurs isn't really about anymore. It kind of is, but I've always wanted to be the type of person who can go on stage at Jongleurs on a Friday night with a very rowdy audience and smash it. That's always been my aim. I've never been like, I want to do fucking arenas and I want to. I've always wanted to do that because that to me is the skill. That's the lion tamer skill. You're in a room, you're leading people, and which is ironic because I hate gong shows, which is kind of the training ground for that.
Yeah, unfortunately.
But I want to be, I want to be a good club comic, and I don't want too much comedy effort to go into social media, because to me it's almost like it's leaking out the energy from being a proper comic.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah.
So what's your best and worst moments then on stage?
Well, let me check my notes. Because I've come prepared. Oh, I had okay, all right. I've got 4 listed here, 4 things listed here. So on my 4th gig, you know when we said when you start. So my first gig was just a normal gig in a pub.
That's actually let's. So your first gig, how?
Yeah.
No course. Did you do a course before?
No, I was doing a course.
Oh, you was doing a course.
I was doing a course. Yeah. I was doing Logan Murray's course. I would recommend it highly.
Mm-hmm.
It's so great. It's the most expensive one, but there's a reason for it. And he comes with his own reputation. Good reputation. Yeah, he hasn't got any allegations against him. And no, he's a wonderful guy. And what he is able to do is find the funniness inside of you, which sounds like an allegation. It's a weird thing he does in his workshops where I don't think I touched a mic or anything like that for 6-7 weeks out of the 10 weeks.
Mm.
Most of it is like group games and writing exercises and funny stuff and getting people to play with each other. So by the time you get onto the mic, you're in a really playful place. And so I did my first set. It went really well. It was lovely. And the moment I got on stage, I was like, oh, I'm meant to be doing this. Like that's genuinely that. I know that sounds so hack. But it really was. I got on stage and I was like, oh, I hate this phrase, and I'm gonna punch myself in the face for it. But I thought to myself, oh, you're home, right? Which is the most wanky phrase to say. Yeah, but that's actually the thought I had.
Yeah.
Like immediately hating myself, like don't think that, you idiot. You're fucking cheesy twat. But I was like this. I was like, this is what I've been meant to be doing the whole time. It was like an epiphany moment.
Yeah.
And then I had my showcase. And as we all know, a showcase can make you feel like you're better than you are.
Yep.
And then I went out to just do some round. Then I had my 3rd gig. That was lovely, to the point where people were coming up to me after going, "That was great," and blah blah blah. And I got on stage and I remember like fucking around, like actually kind of almost clowning, fucking around. I was like, "This is just incredible."
Yeah.
And then I had a 4th gig where it was just one of the worst experience. My soul fell out my ass. It was one of the worst, just awful. Just people going, what is this man doing? And I had done the thing that all people do when they start, which is, oh, hang on a minute, I've already got this. I know what this is about, when you don't know shit.
Mm-hmm.
And it was terrible. And it was a real learning curve, because you don't want to go back to those moments. So then you work harder on getting better. But then you kind of lose the playfulness, because then it becomes
scripted.
Yeah. And it has to become scripted.
Yeah.
We could talk about this later, but I have the whole thing of it is a craft, not an art, and there's a whole logic around that. But I think when you first get on stage, you feel like it's an art, so you're so free, and you're not worried about the mistakes because you haven't had those shit experiences. So you're just kind of like, yeah, and like, it's all joy. But it doesn't take very long to get slapped down, because you can't just go on stage and wing it. You can't.
Yeah.
And then you have to work on the craft.
So come on, give us the other 3.
Oh, okay, all right. I did a gig at Full Frontal Comedy in Eton. I've done some lovely gigs there. One of my best gigs ever was there. It's just a beautiful experience with lots of people, and it was wonderful. But I did a gig there where Russell Hicks was headlining.
Okay.
Andy Stories was playing as well. So I was like, this is I'm on a pro bill.
Yep.
And I was all excited about it, and I just ate shit. It was one of those gigs where you come off stage and you were like, what happened there? Was that bombing? I don't know. And then slowly it seeps into your bones in the next few days, where you're like, oh God, that was awful. That was awful. And I've seen it with comedians. They come off stage after eating shit, and they're a bit shell shocked. They don't come off stage and go, fuck, that was terrible. They come off stage and you can see they hang them out for a bit, and after about 20 minutes they're like, oh God, no, that didn't. I think I'm going to go home. I've seen that more than once. This kind of delayed response. You come off stage thinking, oh, I got through it, and the adrenaline's still going. And then as it settles, you're like, oh, no.
Yeah.
What am I doing with my life? Yeah, last Wednesday I put down as one of those moments where. But what happened with last Wednesday was I've had such a bad January, and I've been doing this for long enough for that shit not to happen. I think I'm putting a lot of judgment on myself.
Yeah.
You know, this should never happen now, type of thing. And I was just like, fuck this, fuck all of this. About a month before Christmas, I emceed a gig. I'm not great at emceeing. I've only done it 4 times, and it's a different skill, but I can get by, you know. And I had a really aggro drunk heckler. People worry about getting heckled in comedy. For the most part, it doesn't really happen. Or if it does, it becomes part of the show, or someone says something, you're like, what? What's going on? What? And everyone laughs and blah, blah. But this guy was like, you know, fuck off, mate. Be funny. Get someone funny on. I was like, all right, where are you from? Your mum. You know, that kind of thing. What do you do?
Yeah.
And he's like, shut up and say something, you know. And I was just like, oh my God. And I was getting angry. When you're the MC, you're the one in charge of the night. So I'm the guy who has to deal with this guy. No one else is going to. It's the comedians aren't going to. Like and it was a really difficult situation. And there was about 10 seconds where I was just silent on stage, looking at him, because I could feel it all coming up for me. I was annoyed, but also panicking, because I'm like, how do I deal with this? And it was all right in the end. I slightly turned it around, because I was going, oh, what's your name? And he's going, your dad. So I was going, hey, say hello to your dad, everybody. All right. And then I just kept on calling him your dad.
Yeah.
When I went home that night, I felt like, God, the world is so horrible and everyone's so horrible. Like, you're out there trying to make people laugh and just do a job.
Yeah.
And someone's like, yeah, you fucking idiot, get off this. And you're like, oh. So, yes, there's been some low points. The rest, you know, there's other bad gigs, but you can check them off. But I think those are the low lines.
Yeah, I came across the first. I'd say probably one of the first hecklers that kind of seemed determined to ruin a night the other night, and it was horrible to see. But this guy at the back was just shouting at various comedians or whatever, and there was this girl on stage doing a bit, and she was talking about the quiz to be accepted as a UK citizen, and there was a question on it, which obviously was bollocks, but it was something to do with, do dogs go on leads and this and whatever else.
Right.
She was on stage and she's wearing a yellow dress, and said, does anybody know something about dogs? And they went, yeah, they wear yellow dresses.
Ugh.
And the whole room just went,
what a cunt.
What the fuck are you doing?
Yeah.
And it's just like, we're in one of the biggest comedy clubs in London, and there's this guy just shouting out shit like that.
What club were you in?
It was a Backyard.
Oh, Backyard is rowdy as.
But this was their new act night, so it's like quite a tame affair. You know, there was 30 odd people in there, but it was just this idiot at the back he started shouting at comics. He's like, do you want to share a bag? And which everyone's just like, just fuck off.
Shut up, mate.
Yeah, all you're doing is interrupting the night and making it awkward for everybody.
But people get off their face, and what they actually do is, I haven't said this to a heckler yet, but I've thought about it, is, you know, if you want to shout things out and it be the center of attention, learn how to be a comic. Yeah, because you obviously want to be a comic, but you're not. So, and what happens is some people, they come along to a gig and they get pissed and all that, and they want to do what you're doing, but they're scared. But then they start shouting things out, and then they get a little bit of attention. They might even get a little bit of a laugh or something, and then suddenly they're like, "Oh, this is about me." And then they're like, whoa, and it's like, no, if you want stage time and you want people to listen to you, become a comic. Because that's why we're all doing it. Because we've all got some mental fucking deficiency, which means we have to be on stage and everybody look at us, right? But we've acknowledged that, and we're going through the process of doing it officially, not just sitting in the audience going,
Yeah, there was a bit at the Comedy Store, King Gong. I don't know if you saw it in February.
No, because they stream it now, don't they?
Yeah, it's on Facebook Live every month. And there was a bit where there was somebody who was just constantly shouting out and just being disruptive, and then the MC basically got annoyed and said, "Look, if you think you can do better, get up on stage and do it." So they've dragged him on stage.
Oh, I think I've seen that.
And he goes, "Oh yeah, I've been doing comedy for 6 months. All your booing is not going to affect me or whatever."
Yeah.
And
I saw that clip.
He was on there for a minute or whatever.
Yeah.
And then when he got kicked off, the guy in the booth just went, "Mate, you're such a cunt." If you want to be a comic and you're doing that to other comedians, you're a cunt.
Correct. Yes.
And it was just like, that's perfect.
I would never go to a comedy club or and just shout at people. Like, just mental. Just completely crazy about it, especially as I'm a comic.
Yeah.
It's just crazy. But I mean, I went to see a lot of comedy before I became a comic. Obviously, you've got this some kind of weird draw to it.
Yeah.
I never once heckled.
No.
Like what? Like what? I don't know. Why would you? People are dickheads, though, man.
Yeah.
They got and look, life is hard, and they go and they get drunk, and then they shout something out, and I get it. Everyone screws up, but there are some people there who you are literally like, check your thinking. What are you doing?
Yeah. It was just the whole thing. When as soon as he said, I've been doing stand up for 6 months, and everyone's just like, and you're acting. You can imagine every comic in that room's going, and you're acting like that.
Yeah.
And now you put yourself on stage.
And also the woman comedian he was heckling won the night.
Yes.
Yeah. In your face.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. She walked off with her fingers in the air, didn't she?
Yeah.
And that was brilliant.
Yeah.
There was a few of them on that night I saw. There's a guy called Liam that I met a few times, and he kind of, I don't want to say he's just scraped through, but he was getting there.
Yeah.
But there was a point where he was just like, some guy obviously in the audience, he didn't quite hear it, was just abusing him. And when he got through, he was just like 2 fingers up and he just walked off the stage.
Oh, it's brilliant.
And you just like, get in.
It's brilliant. When I got gonged off at the blackout recently, I did the old 2 fingers. I walked off. Just 2 fingers, because he's like, fuck off.
Yeah.
You know what? I thought that was going to be terrifying. And I suppose this is now like habit kicking in. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying I did good or anything.
You did better than me.
But yeah, but you know what? First on is a little softer landing. But I remember just going through my routine, telling the story, and about 10 seconds before I got kicked off, some guy just went off, and I just went, "Shut up, mate! You don't even have a card." I wasn't. It didn't bother me. I was just like, "Shush, you be quiet."
Yeah.
I mean, look, fair enough. They get voted off, and it's like, right, the jury has decided, but it didn't really bother me, and it's perhaps because of that aggro heckler. And in that same gig, actually, about a year before that, I got a guy was heckling every comic, talking over them, asking questions. But what do you mean by that? And how do? And I was prepared, ready for him. So when I came on, he started talking. I said, "You need to shut up." And he started talking. And I was going, "Oh, you're like my wife. In one ear out the other. I'm not listening. Be quiet."
Yeah.
And I totally shut him down. So I think if you've got a little plan in your head, you can deal with it. It's the ones that come like kind of left field, and you're like, and you're trying to do your set, and you're trying to go through something, and they're just, I don't know, coked up, boozed up. Ugh. Anyway, well, it's all part of the fun, I suppose, isn't it? Really, but it doesn't feel that fun
sometimes
at the time. Yeah.
So what about best gigs?
All right. Yeah. Let's.
As it goes, one.
Be very negative. Yeah. So I've got here not applicable. Yeah. So I did a gig in Eton, full frontal comedy, full room. That was probably my best gig to that date. I went on and it just went so well, and it was so lovely. And one of the things I remember is not being nervous at all, and I felt this a few times now, but I was so in flow. I was completely in the moment, and I actually felt like, doesn't matter what happens, I've got this.
Yeah.
And I fucked some stuff up, and that became part of the joke. And no, I could do no wrong. And it wasn't just the audience, it was definitely a feeling I had. And I think if the audience detects that from you, they're like, all right, we're in good hands. We can relax. Because I did fuck some stuff up and make jokes about fucking it up, and then I then talked to some audience and they weren't responding, and then I was joking about that, and that was getting a bigger laugh, and I was like, fucking hell, and I came off and I was like, this makes sense, because I felt like that was part of my upwards trajectory. I was like, yes, but obviously you then go back down. It's never like that. But there was that gig. This is ironic because I've had such a bad January. One of the best gigs I've ever had is the last gig I had in 2024. It was a couple of weeks before Christmas, full room. I headlined. I was last on. She didn't introduce me as a headliner, so I don't know whether I could say I was headliner. She chose me to be last on. This is really interesting. I hadn't seen this email until about 2 weeks ago, so I'm feeling shit about comedy all of January, and I go through my emails and see that she's emailed me and she'd given me some amazing feedback that you really want to hear.
Yeah.
I asked everybody, who was the best in the night, and they all said you. I'm not blowing my own trumpet because trust me, I've eaten enough shit this fucking year.
Yeah.
They said you're the most professional. Someone said they were amazed at what you did, and I was like, fucking glowing stuff, glowing. But because I received it a couple of weeks ago, I was like, well, this doesn't mean anything because I've. That's such a comedian thing. It's like, thanks for saying all of those nice things and the feedback, but have you seen my last 7 gigs? What's going on?
Yeah.
So there was that one, and then what else have I got? I had a lovely one on the 1st of February this year. A beautiful gig. It was so wonderful. And that was straight after the blackout, and it was so good. So that's up there. And I did my first headliner slot for 15 minutes in Southend. This is a boring podcast, and it's just me fucking going, oh, then I smashed it here. That's what I didn't. There's a fucking look. There's 4 gigs there, but it was a landmark for me.
Yeah.
To do a headline spot. He introduced me as the headliner. I had some material about how I'm not a TV comedian, but I'm a headliner. Like what I shouldn't be here type of thing.
Yeah.
But there was a plant pot which kept on falling over during the night, and when I first came on, the music was playing and stuff, and I picked the plant pot up and I just gave it to someone randomly in the audience. And then like I picked up the mic and the lead fell out and I was like, oh no. And then I think something else might have fallen over and it was like chaos.
Yeah.
And everyone was like, fucking yeah, this is so funny. Like laughing loads. And I was like, oh, it was a weird moment. I was like, I'm allowed to fuck about.
Yeah.
I'm allowed to give you a fucking plant pot, and people are just like, ha ha, there's a comedian doing something wacky. And it was really like, it was a bit of a freeing moment. But it was my first time doing 15 minutes as well. Not that I told the guy when he booked me. He's like, you did 50 minutes headline. I was like, yeah, sure. And I'm like, fuck. But that was just a moment where I was like, yeah, I felt like I was going up, not going down. And I don't want to seem too like egotistical. Look, all comics have huge egos. But you've got to allow your ego to be destroyed. And trust me, this year so far, it's just been pestle and mortared into powder, mate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know where you're coming from. It's been I had a really rough January last year, and I kind of thought to myself, should I just not do January this year? Should I do like the comics version of Dry January?
Yeah. Yeah.
Just not do anything, because then you can't be disappointed. And then I had that really stupid idea of doing a blackout at the end of January, which then meant, I better put some gigs in leading up to it. I can't go into that cold. I've blown that idea of having that peaceful time and just going and reflecting on it. And now you jump straight in. It's like, because I had like in December 24, I had probably 3 gigs cancel on me.
Right.
And I was just like, I had all these numbers set up and
actually your momentum stopped. Yeah.
And it was just like, I went through a period of where it was going to be like, for me, 2 to 3 a week. And it almost accumulated in that little period right before Christmas. So I was taking like the stuff that I would have done in the weeks after Christmas, before Christmas, and had it and had this run.
Yeah.
And I felt like I was making some progress in some of the stuff I was doing. And then it was just like, gig cancelled. And it's just like...
And then blackout. Fucking hell. It's like doing a Tough Mudder with no training, innit? You need to train. You need to train. You need to be on stage and desensitize yourself. Because if there's a big gap when I don't gig for a while, and I think the biggest gap I've only ever had in about, apart from the pandemic, is like a month. You'll have like 4 weeks off or something, because I'm shit at admin. That's the only reason. When you first come back on stage, you're like, what am I doing? This is mental.
Yeah. Like,
it feels so foreign. And then when you've been doing it for a while, you just get the mic, you're so relaxed, and you're like, listen, I'm going to tell you some stuff, you're going to laugh, and this is the deal. It's like you've got this weird mental kind of, I got this.
Yeah.
But what I've been having recently is I've been having that feeling the whole time that the gig just doesn't sit well with me. You know when you eat a meal and it doesn't sit well with you?
Yeah.
And you're like, oh, what's up with that?
Yes.
Yeah. I'm getting that feeling with gigs where I'm going up and I'm like, this doesn't sit well. I don't understand how to approach this. I don't feel right. And I'll just come on stage and I'll be like, there's a javelin player.
Yeah.
He plays javelin. He plays 12-a-side javelin. And he there's a javelin thrower. Oh, what the fuck do you call him? person, lobber.
Let's just.
Yeah,
They throw the javelin.
They throw the javelin. Yeah. British champion Steve somebody. He was Olympic champion as well, I think.
Are we going back years to like our youth?
We're going back to the
Backley.
90s. Steve Backley, I think his name is. Yes. Wow. Good stuff.
I can remember that. I just can't remember for 5 minutes.
Yeah, exactly. Just can't remember a punchline I've done 20 times in my head. Yeah. Anyway, I believe it was him. He got to the peak of his throwing career. I love the way I'm talking about javelin. I know fuck all about javelin. I'm like
big stick.
Yeah, he got peak stick. He was in. Yeah, exactly. He was in peak hoying a fucking pole.
He's a cyclist, isn't he? Hoy?
Yeah. Yes, very good, very good. He was. What are we talking about? Right, yeah.
Javelin thrower.
Javelin, this guy. And he forgot how to do it, basically. It's like, mate, come on, it's not that hard. 3 steps to throw. But the point is, he forgot all of his kind of technique. He was in his head too much. And he was obviously very good at what he did, but he just forgot it. And he needed a coach to kind of, he needed to relearn everything.
It happens a lot with sportsmen. I call it sport. I like playing darts and I like playing snooker. And there's so many darts players out there that get a thing called dartitis, which sounds ridiculous. It sounds like bollocks, but it basically means they can't release the dart.
Really?
Yeah. There's something in their brain, between their brain and their fingers, that will not allow them to release that dart. So if you ever see somebody with dartitis and they go up and they go to throw, they don't release. They just pull it back again and they go again.
Doing this a lot.
And what they'll do sometimes is they'll go on stage and they'll throw a ghost dart with the hand just to one side, and then they've got that movement and they've got that feeling of letting go.
Yeah,
it's a really weird thing. And
dartitis.
Yeah, and Stephen Hendry for snooker.
I mean, that's definitely not a medical term, is it? I know it describes a symptom, but it's not like a fucking doctor came up with it and put it in Latin. No, dartitis.
Probably not. Yeah. Probably not from in Latin anyway. But like Stephen Hendry suffers with something he calls the yips.
The yips. I know what the yips is. Yes.
He can't pull the cue back in the same way he used to anymore, which affects the follow through. And this whole thing about relearning, because there's something in you that's changed.
Yeah.
And you can't get past that barrier. But I almost think sometimes that's where people have gone from being really successful to not being successful.
Yeah.
And think, oh, it's not because other people have got better, it's because I've got worse.
That's probably true though, to an extent.
Yeah, but that's what I mean is that they then look at themselves in such a way and they start over-analysing things rather than letting things go naturally.
Over-analysing is exactly it.
That's a comedian's thing.
Because comedy is, as we've just discussed, it's about being free. It's about clowning around. It's like mucking about. And when you start over-analysing, you're completely in your head and you haven't got that energy. So this is... I'm going to mention a couple of people now who we've already mentioned one, Logan, that people are going to know. But obviously you've got Logan Murray, and then you've got Adam Bloom.
Yeah.
Right. And they come at comedy in 2 very different ways. Logan Murray, like I said, comes across as find you're funny, fuck about, be surreal, be silly. Adam Bloom comes across much more as break down a joke like it's a maths equation, move stuff about, find the value of the punchline, move it here, word smuggle, fucking, etc.
Seesaws.
Yeah, all of that. And look, and that is brilliant.
Yep.
That's taught me a lot. And there's value in both of those things. But you can't be too one or the other, I suppose. But you definitely can't be too analytical. But then again, I do believe it's a craft. So I don't know what I'm talking about, Mark.
This happens a lot because I'll start talking about things and I'm like, I'm convinced this is the way. And then I'll talk to other people and I'm like, no, I think you've changed my mind. And I think this is the thing is modern day as well. It's kind of getting psychological is that a lot of people think once you've put your stake in the ground, that's yours.
Yeah.
And there's people that go, well, you said that once. You can't change your mind. That's what it is. That's what you believe forever.
Yes.
So no. That's being closed in. That's doing the same thing over and over again.
Right. My mates, there's a your fucking mates are cunts.
Yep.
like everyone relentlessly piss takes. I've got a group of friends and it's part of what we do. And one of the big things is they say like, if I change my mind or something, then they go, oh look, it's a fucking classic 180. It's a Jamie 180. Here we go. It's a Jamie 180.
Yeah.
And I'm like, yeah, but you allow someone to grow and change their minds, and that's part of life. If you're Muhammad Ali's got a quote where he's like, a man who is 50 believes the same as 20 has wasted 30 years of his life, and it's like, I just pulled a quote off there on a podcast, mate. Clip that. Yeah.
Oh, will do.
Yeah. And it's true. You're allowed to change your mind, and you're allowed to change your mind, especially when you're learning something like comedy. And we're all learning. I don't care if you're 10, 12, 15 years in. We're all learning. And your thoughts about things should change. Right. Okay. Here's another quote, which I think is just so bang on about comedy. And it's Bruce Lee. And he said, when I first learned the art...
The famous Bruce Lee, the comedian.
He's hilarious. Yeah. He said when I first started doing the art, and he's talking about martial arts. He's a martial artist.
Not painting.
No, not telling one-liners. He said, I thought a punch was just a punch and a kick was just a kick. But when I got good at the art, I realised a punch is much more than a punch, and a kick is much more than a kick. When I mastered the art, I realised a punch was just a punch and a kick was just a kick.
Okay.
And it's like that bell curve meme that you get, right? And which one the low end, the stupid end, could be just be funny, and the master end is just be funny.
Yep.
But the middle is, what's your seesaw? Where you where are you losing impact on your punchlines? Where are you? And it's like, you need to go through the bell curve of an analysis, but ultimately it does just come down to relax and be funny. Yeah. And so I think I'm somewhere in that middle of that bell curve. Overanalyzing everything and then not being able to do anything. That's what's happening.
Yeah, I always find with myself is that the more relaxed I am, the more playful I get, the funnier I feel like I am.
Fuck yeah.
And I always get decent feedback. It's like, yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
You can just see how somebody is different from what you're used to see. But in comedy, sometimes you're so engrossed in perfection, in the way you're doing your words and the joke writing, especially those that aren't used to performing, forget about the performance side and just write a joke. And they write a joke. And the joke is fantastic, but it's been delivered like a fucking heap of shit.
Yeah.
And you're like...
Because you can get one-liner comedians, right? But they will still deliver them in a kind of weird, swivel-eyed, I'm odd type of way. Yeah. I mean, you look at Tim Vine, probably the greatest one-liner comedian that I can think of right now. but he is. He's fucking brilliant. I'm reading Susan Holloway's book on how to write jokes at the moment, but I can't remember what it's called. Just Be Funny or something. I don't know.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. It's called the book of joke writing or whatever. Look it up though. It's really
genius. Not genius title.
It is. Yeah. That's what it says on the tin. And anyway, in it, she's got a Tim Vine joke, and I was crying with laughter over this joke, which is, and I'm going to butcher it, but it's, so I said to this gym instructor, I want you to teach me how to do the splits. And he said, well, how flexible are you? And I said, I can't do Tuesdays. Which is just such a wonderful fucking joke.
Yeah.
It's just, and she was using it to show the double meaning of flexible, of course.
Yeah.
But but the reason why I found it so funny was I was reading it in my head as Tim Vine. And so the material's great, but he's great.
Yes. Yeah. It's entirely that. It's that delivery of, people don't know us. So if somebody was to read your joke or hear you tell your joke, it could just be utter shit no matter how clever it is. But you give it to somebody that can actually deliver it.
Have you ever done the thing where you watch someone's act, like a good comedian, like Bill Burr or somebody like that, and then you try and do their act?
No, I've never done that. I've had a bit where
not on stage, at home I'm talking about.
Yeah, no, I've done a bit where I've sat in an audience of a comedy show and somebody on stage has been doing a bit very, very similar to mine.
Oh, yeah.
And when you see that and you see a professional do it, you're just like, that's how it's done.
Well, on Wednesday, right, I had a joke because at the top of the show, I talk about being celibate but being married and that kind of thing. As you can see, I'm loving my material at the moment. Fucking. But there's one of the new jokes. It was 90% new. I wrote for that night was me and my wife don't look at porn together anymore, but we do browse Rightmove together. Oh, look at that, baby.
Yeah.
Is that big enough for you? Etc. Etc. That kind of joke, because I talk a lot about property in it. And the first comedian who opened went on, and he did. No one watches porn together anymore, but they do look at Rightmove. And I was like, what? What the fuck? Like,
Yeah.
and I mean, obviously, everyone thinks the same thing. We get it. But that threw me as well, because I was like, shit, I can't even mention that bit now. So I got rid of that. And I also came up with a joke. Can I run it by you? See what you think about it. I worked for 10 years in the Gherkin building in London, and they didn't even give me a corner office.
Okay, I get it.
All right, there we go. So yeah, that's all I need. That's all I need to know. Well, I get it. Yeah, because the building's round.
Yeah.
So there aren't any corner offices, but it's obvious. I thought that's fucking good, but no.
It's, some people are really good at like anti-comedian, being an anti-comedian comedian. Do you know?
Yeah, but that wasn't my aim.
No.
I was just being an anti-comedian. Yeah. Okay. All right. That's the kind of thing that we need the workshops, because we go to that Hearts Comedy Workshop. That's the kind of thing that you want to run past people.
Yeah.
But what is interesting, because we were talking about this a little bit before about needing your own momentum, not a group's momentum. So what I would say is you book the blackout because we all did the blackout. So it's almost like a bit of peer pressure. You're like, I'm going to do the blackout as well. No one pressured you into it, but you're like, oh, I'll do it as well.
No, but I started it. It
was you, you
my
fucker.
fault. It's all my fault.
Oh, right. Okay, no excuse then, Mark.
No, because I Matt Zitron, who I know quite well through this and in comedy, we're quite good friends. And then one time it was like the back end of last year, he did the blackout, and I said to him, I fancy doing it again. I've got some. I need got some revenge. I need to get back on that place, because last time it went as badly as this time. And he went, well, let's book it then. And I was just like, all right, when? And he said, well, the one at the end of January. And he said, I've got a whole rationale for this, is that people have been paid, people are coming out, people are out for a laugh. So it should be good. All right.
Yeah.
So I booked it. He booked it. We both got accepted on the same one. And that's when I put it in for the workshop group and went, hey, I'm doing this. If you fancy doing it, drop this as the email and do whatever. And then 9 of the fuckers turned up.
Well, we're so lazy comedians, right? Or more to the point, we hate admin so much, and the booking and the chasing and the emailing, that if somebody gives you a link and says just apply, you're like, oh, it's right in front of me, I'll do it. Because this is something that nobody talks about, actually, that I wanted to mention, is one of the big things about comedy, one of the huge things about comedy is the admin.
Yeah.
You're your own administrator.
Mm-hmm.
You have to source gigs, you have to email people, you have to be on all the forums, you have to do all of that shit, and it's the worst.
Yeah.
Because a lot of the time people are getting into comedy because they aren't that type of admin person. And I'm not. I'm fucking straight up ADHD. I think the compulsive need to talk I've mistaken for wanting to do comedy, and maybe it's just a neurological disorder. But I am convinced that 90% of comedians are ADHD, and if they're not, they're autistic.
Mm.
I mean, it's profoundly like, how many comedians have you seen go on stage going, right, I've got ADHD, and it's like, of course you have. Don't talk about it, because we all have. We're all mental. That's why we're here. Why do you think we're doing it?
Yeah,
Hey, sorry for the interruption. Duncan Hart here from episode 37. If you're enjoying this podcast, give it a like, a 5-star rating, and a follow on whatever app you're using right now. Mark will be forever grateful. Now, back to this cracking episode.
I'm in a very bitter place. I'm sorry. Everyone else has probably come on and been like, yeah, comedy. And I'm like,
fucking comedy.
Yeah. I listened to another comedian's podcast, and he's an Australian comedian. But he came over and did a little tour here, and I went to see him, and I chatted to him afterwards.
Who's that out of the way? Who's that?
He is called his podcast is called I'm Quitting Alcohol. He's the guy I got the idea for doing a daily podcast, because he does a daily podcast.
Okay.
Oh God, I'm gonna have to Google it live on a podcast, because I want to give him his dues, because he's so good. But anyway, I saw him. He was not only was he funny, but he also was talking about another comedian on his podcast, and he was going, "This guy's a real comedian." And I thought he was going to say, he's funny, and he said his dreams have all been shattered. He's just he's just bitter. He hates everybody. He's been through the mill and come out the other side. And I'm like, that is a proper. I mean, I'm not saying it's good to be like that, but I get it. David Boyle.
Okay.
David Boyle. He's an Australian comedian. Daily podcast. I'm quitting alcohol. He's very funny. I do sometimes think you meet older comedians or comedians who've been doing it for a while, and they're just like, they're not there for the hang. They're not there for the banter. They're not there for being popular. They're like, they want to come on and do their thing. And they're a bit like, everyone else can fuck off. And there's something I'm like, I can see myself turning into that.
It's when they get asked the question, how long have you been doing comedy? And the answer is too long.
Too long, yeah.
It's like, come on, mate, enjoy it.
Yeah, when you hit 5 years, you want to tell everyone, I've been doing it 5 years.
Yeah.
Like as if you're going to get a fucking badge. And then I'm at the point where I'm almost not one. Like you go and you do shit, and then people are like, how long have you been doing comedy? And you don't want to say, I've been doing it over 6 years now, because it's like, I should be better than that.
But this has always been my argument, is that if you ever feel down about somebody saying, I've been doing comedy for 6 years, you've done 200 gigs or whatever it is, and they go, and how long have you been going? Done 200 gigs, and you're thinking that they're thinking this guy should be better than he is. If you've done 200 gigs, your average set length is 7 minutes. Probably. You've done a load of 5s, load of 10s.
Yeah.
You do 7 times 200.
It's like 55,000 or something, isn't it?
1,400.
Yeah.
1,400 minutes.
1,400 minutes.
You spent on stage.
Divide that by 1,400 minutes. Let's divide that by 6, because it takes 10,000 hours to get good at something, right?
Well, this is my point.
Yeah. So hang on, let's get the calculator out. Unless you're good at maths, I'm not good at maths. Can you divide that by 60? What did you say? 14,000.
So you do 200 times by 7 is the number of minutes.
What? I didn't expect to do maths on this podcast. Right. 200.
Yeah. Times by 7.
Times by 7.
1,400.
1,400, yeah.
1,400 minutes.
Yeah. So divide that by 60. 23 hours.
You've done
it's
it.
Not even a day's
It's
worth.
not even a day.
Not even a day of comedy.
Now, if you in the corporate world, if you go and start a new job and you get given all the SOPs, the standard operating procedures to read through,
oh, you're making me feel sick with your 3-letter acronyms. Yeah,
it's more than a day's worth of work,
and
you're still not considered an expert at it.
Wow, that's a great way to look at it. That is a great way. Yeah, I mean, I remember talking to Tom Ward, and he said, I think he said 2,000 or 4,000. He said, I've done over 2,000 or 4,000 gigs. Can't remember the number.
Yeah.
But I remember thinking, wow, that's a lot. But that's why he's great.
Yeah.
And I've got a mate who's been doing comedy for a while longer than me. And I did a gig with him a bit over a year ago, and he was saying, I've done over 400 gigs. So it's like he's done over 400 gigs. I've still only done 200. Oh, God.
And I'm just coming up to 100. It's weird when you think about it like that. You can't be an expert in that amount of time. You just can't. It doesn't happen. Unless you are that freak of nature. There is that one person in every, 150, 200,000 people that is just immediately got it. Doesn't matter. They can just do anything.
Yeah.
They're that cunt at school who passed their driving test first, who saw a pair of tits first, who kissed a girl first. There's always that cunt.
Yeah,
and then the moment
they've got fucking underarm hair and biceps when they're 11, and you're like, what the fuck?
And then by the time you see them when they're 30, and they're dishevelled.
Oh, I love it.
Yes.
I love it. I fucking love it. I've seen that's happened to me a few times. I see these people at school, because like I haven't aged brilliantly, but I also haven't aged terribly.
Yeah.
And you see people and they look 20 years older than you, and you're like, fuck you.
Yep.
Fucking time bears out. Yeah. and that's what it is. Part of comedy is that if you wanted me to give some advice to younger people, one of the things younger people or newer comics is just stick it out. Because the course I did with Logan, there was 12 people on it or something. I think me and one other person are still doing comedy now.
Yeah.
Everyone else has stopped.
Yeah, same for me. In the course I did, there's only me and one other doing it.
Yeah.
It's weird.
I mean, it's fine. Sometimes people do it because they just want to do it as a bucket list thing.
Yeah.
But I've always wanted to be a comic.
But ours dropped week by week. We started with 18 people in the class.
Oh, shit.
By week 3, it was down to 15.
The instructor must have been terrible.
He was really good, actually. I just
Okay.
think Ben, love you. And then it went down and just down. It got to like the showcase week, and then there was 12 of us left.
Well, the showcase shits people up.
But then one person then had an accident, ended up in hospital, so that was 11.
Oh, right.
It was just like dropping. It was weird. So where's Alex then? was like, nobody knows.
Well, on the
Just didn't show up again.
Yeah, I think there was 11 people in my course actually, because we had 12 and one guy didn't show up again after the first week. He was obviously like, fuck that. And it is scary as fuck.
Oh, it is. I remember we did like the very first time we were in this room doing like sitting around a circle, like fucking Alcoholics Anonymous or something like that.
Yeah.
And they're like, introduce yourself and, something about yourself. Just want one fact about you and your name. And I was the first one to go up. And I was like, yeah, my name's Mark and I'm actually fucking petrified. And that was it. And it got a laugh.
Brilliant. No, brilliant, because everyone's feeling the same way. That's really good. That's really good. You know what? When you were doing the intro to the podcast, I was getting that nervy feeling, right? In my job, the thing I hate the most is when they go, let's just go around the room and quickly say who you are. No, I'm 46 years old. I still can't do it. I cannot do it. It terrifies me. Andy Stories has got a great joke, which is there a worse shape in the world than a human circle? So good, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because it's true. You just sit down and it's like, right, now let's go round. And say, no, I don't want to go around and say anything to anyone. I'll blurt out and interject and stuff like that. But it's the waiting. It's like a little clock. You next. And then my heart starts going faster. My saliva disappears. I'm all like, and before the next person speaking, before you, and then it's like, hi, my name's Jamie. I'm a project manager. I'm like that. It's appalling.
Weird, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, I used to think I suffered from anxiety, right? I actually used to think I had general anxiety disorder, GAD, or as I like to call it, oh GAD. Anyway, fucking shit joke. But it turns out I don't. I just hate working in a corporate environment.
Yeah.
Right. I still work. I still have a job, but I work from home 100% of the time now. But working in an office, I just couldn't do it. It was something about it every day, wearing a suit, fucking carpet tiles and glass doors, those overhang ceiling lights and
beeps to get into a building to open a door.
Honestly, I'm feeling a little bit sick about it now. I've got like an actual psychological aversion to it. And kind of about September, October last year, I needed to go into Bishopsgate and we went into the Salesforce building, giant, big corporate fucking building.
Yeah.
And we all sat in a conference room. And I actually had a panic attack. I've had proper panic attacks years ago, and it's much worse than what I had. But I guess if you're a normie, you'd call it a panic attack. I had an absolute freak out. My heart was going in 10 to the dozen. I was like sweating. I was anxious. My throat was all dry. I had this whole thing of just going, get out, get out, get out, just from sitting in one of those rooms.
Wow.
And I've worked it out, Mark. I'm sorry. I'm talking too much, but I've worked out that I put a lot of pressure on myself with comedy because I'm like, The Office isn't me. I'm like, God, that's so not me.
Yeah.
That I'm like, if comedy isn't me either,
Oh, okay, yeah.
then who the fuck am I? And maybe I just can't do anything. Do you see what I mean?
No,
I feel like I'm going to be found out. I'm finding myself out. Shit, I'm just shit at everything. That's what it is. So there's a lot of psychological pressure on you to do well in comedy because you're looking for the answer.
So you're much like me when it comes to comedy and stuff, in that you've got a family around you. You've got 4 kids.
I've got 4 kids. Yeah.
Obviously dogs.
3 wives.
3 wives. Do they know each other?
Yeah, they all live under one house. We're Mormons. No, I have 4 kids. 3 of them are my stepkids. The youngest one is mine. I had so many jokes about that, cut so many different ways, and I'm actually bored of saying it now, so I've just stopped talking about it.
Yeah.
Like in my set, I'm talking about. And I've got 2 dogs that need walking every day, and my wife works full time, and I work full time but from home.
Yeah.
But anyway, it's a fucking squeeze, mate. I think that's what you're alluding to.
Yeah.
Is it busy? Yeah.
It's basically trying to how you balance. I mean, how you balance home life with comedy life, because the one thing I think I've learned being in this industry is it's all consuming.
It's very mentally consuming.
Yeah,
I don't know whether I'd say it's time consuming as much, because you're just having it in the evening, and most people don't work in the evening. But emotionally and mentally, it can be exhausting.
Yeah.
And I do find if I do several gigs a week and you're driving a lot, which I do, I love driving. But what's weird is if you drive 90 minutes somewhere and then you do a gig and all of that and blah, 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 and then you come and you drive 90 minutes back, The next day, I'm knackered, and I'm like, oh, that driving is taking something out of me. Even if you're listening to a podcast and you're just chilling out, there's something about driving which, I don't know, concentration or something must drain something from you. And so it's difficult. Look, this is going to make it sound like I'm going to try and cram into the conversation the fact that I go to the gym, but a personal...
Do you?
Yeah. Yeah. But I go to the gym as much as Max, right? I can 100% guarantee that. And I've probably been working out longer than him. I don't look like I work out. And this is one of the things that I've noticed about myself is I'm a perennial underachiever in music, in comedy, with gym, I'm just like, fuck. You know, when you look at stuff and you're like, I was the only person not to get into my football team at school. I was the only person not to get into the choir. I don't know why the choir was so important. But the point is, you remember the times when you're 10 and they go, well, have everybody, not you. And you're like, and that gets embedded in you.
Yeah.
And you're like, and the thing is, I wasn't even a bad football player because I used to go to a football camp and stuff. But they're just like, no, not you. And when you try stuff for a long period of time and then you don't get anywhere, you're like, oh, is it me? And I have that with the gym as well. People go, right, Duncan, our good friend Duncan, he saw a video of me at the gym.
Yeah.
Because you got to film it, otherwise it never happened. He's so convinced I didn't go to the gym that he thought it was AI. I mean, could you get more of an indictment of how shit you are at putting on muscle than someone going, oh, he's got his face stuck on someone else? But anyway, I digress slightly. The guy in the gym, he said to me, I don't know how you find time to do it all because you've got your job and you've got your family and you go to the gym and you got comedy.
Yeah.
But I've got a nice routine. I can go to the gym during the lunch.
Yep.
I drop my boy for school in the morning. I work from home. I pick him up in the afternoon because I've got that flexibility. And then if I'm doing a gig, I'll go out that evening.
Yeah.
So it's not so bad. But if I go out, then if I'm out 4 nights a week, my wife is a little bit like, well, who's walking the dogs? And I've got to put the boy to bed again. And it's a bit shit like that. But then sometimes I'll batch cook during the day for the family.
Yeah.
My life compared to say 15 years ago is fucking busy.
Yes.
Me and my wife work well as a team. We've got it sorted. You have to be like military precision with that size of family.
Yeah. I can. I can say I can imagine. As mine.
You've got 2, haven't you?
I've got 2. Yeah, but one's no longer at home. One's 20.
2 wives, 20-year-old, like it. Yeah.
But it's that whole they don't care. The kids don't care anymore. Obviously, we had kids really young. Like I say, 27 is the oldest.
What are you, 67 now? Something like that?
47.
47, you're older than me. Yes, somebody older than me. That makes me feel good. Yeah.
And because we spent all the time bringing up the kids in the time when we should have been partying, now's the time for us.
Yeah. It's your second wind.
Yeah. So we can go away. We can go and do what we want.
So you're smashing pills and going clubbing, isn't
Not quite, but we can. You know, I always
you're staying up late watching an extra Netflix documentary.
I'm thinking more of like, you know, when you were a youngster and you go away on a holiday with the boys or whatever, or you go away with the missus, you'd be looking at a little hotel because of, you know, you're trying to keep the budget and you're trying to do all that. But now I'm in a fortunate position where we can go a little bit not mad, but we can look at the nicer things.
Yeah, for sure.
Because the kids are gone, we don't have to worry about them.
Yeah,
it's just us.
So how was the other one? You said 20 and
27.
Oh wow, you're cool then. Yeah,
but now that if I go off and do comedy, it takes away the time that we would have.
Ah, yes.
That's where the thing is and it's when if you've got a young family and you've got kids around, it might sound a bit weird, but then the other person that's left behind,
they've got to stay at home anyway.
They've got something to occupy themselves. They've got a kid to look after.
Knock yourself out. Just bath the boy and put him to bed. Thanks very much.
But I don't have. I can just go off and do what I want to do, and then subconsciously in my head it's like,
are you being a shit husband?
Yeah,
yeah, mate. This is a big one actually, because sometimes I'll say I've got to do this. I've got to do this. There was for a while my wife was going to this exercise class on Tuesdays, and she said to me, "Don't take any gigs on Tuesdays." And I said, well, it might happen every now and again because I've got to try and take what I'm given, really.
Yeah.
And for some reason I then had a run of Tuesday gigs like just never ending run of Tuesday gigs.
And it looked like it was deliberate.
Yeah, and every time she was like, and she still could go, but then it meant one of the other boys had to be home to watch the youngest, and then and again, who's walking the dogs, and who's what's happening with dinner, and blah 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 blah. And these are the things I think that young comedians. I wish I started comedy much younger because you have so much more freedom to hammer it. And there is a weird thing there where I will go to comedy nights and it'll be like, you know, when you're like rizzing this girl on Hinge, and I'm like, what?
No.
And it's like, you know, when like your flatmate leaves spaghetti in the sink, and I'm like, no, I don't understand any of this. What I do understand is being in my 40s and married, and look, everyone's allowed to talk about their own thing. Don't get me wrong, but what I'm saying is, it happens slowly, but your life changes so much.
Yeah.
And so when I'm on stage, I'm like, what am I going to talk about? Am I going to, you know, what is there to talk about? I've got such a domesticated life.
But
yeah,
if you're in the right audience, then it's gold. It's
home
absolute
counties,
gold.
50-year-olds fucking love me.
I did the gig when it was a week or so ago, and I'm in front of 45-year-olds, and I'm talking about 90s nightclubs.
Yes, boy.
And
that
come on.
Yeah. Well, one of my favourite bits I do, picking myself up, but it's one of those stories that's developed over such a long period of time, and more bits have come into it and stuff, and it works so well. I actually did it for the blackout because I thought this works so well. Wasn't blackout material.
Yeah.
Because it's a fucking story, but it's all about kids are now on dating apps, and they're like, oh, dating apps are shit. And it's like, yeah, but you don't understand. We had to fucking leave the house. We had to go to clubs.
Yeah.
You had to call people on and when you had to call people, you had to speak to their parents and say, oh, hi, is you know, Julian, please. You know, it was a whole different level of inconvenience.
Yeah.
And when I do that routine to people who are, say, around 50, they all get it, because it's like, yes, we did used to have a phone in the lounge. Yes, you did have to speak to people's parents. Yes, you know, and all of that. And it's fun when young people are there, because I bounce off them about, you know, I talk about phone boxes, and you don't know what a phone box is, and you know, there's a bit where I mention coins, and I'm like, you're probably wondering what coins are. Yeah, it's like, yeah, it's silly, but it's built up over time. It's a really good back and forward piece, and I'm really happy with it. But that's definitely my groove of nostalgia.
Yeah, because I find that when there was a particular line I used in that set, and you could see everybody's whites of their eyes just went bing. Everybody got it. Everybody understood. And my next line was something like, I bet I've taken all of you back about 30 years now, haven't I?
Yeah.
And you could see the nodding of the heads and the laughter, and I'm just like, that's what I want to play.
But then do that in Dalston,
to 25-year-olds who weren't even born when I'm about the story. So I said to somebody, have you ever heard of 90s nightclub? She was, I was born in the 90s. I'm like, fuck off.
I did a gig with someone a while back, and they were born after 9/11, and I was like, this doesn't even make sense. Do you know what I mean? There was
so you never saw the towers live on TV?
No, I was fucking at work when that happened.
I was.
Yeah.
Fuck.
It's yeah.
It's quite funny, but I think I don't know where we're going with this part of the conversation, but
just a trip down, just two old men having a trip down memory lane, Mark.
But this is where we as comedians have to understand.
Do you remember 9/11? Wasn't it great? Sorry,
I remember. I won't tell that story. There was when you're doing things to like a particular crowd. I think the real skill now is what I'm learning it, but I haven't quite got it. Is that how to bring those other people into the story that don't know what it is, and how to make the comparisons to get them in.
That's why I have all of that bit about phone boxes and coins and other things, because it's like that's a way to relate to the young people, and I actually do the story to them, but really the story is for the older people.
Yeah, it's like it's like Pixar doing cartoons, isn't it? There's always the dad joke in there or the adult joke in there. It's so subtle.
Yeah.
And the adults are going, I get it.
Yeah.
And the kids are like, I don't know.
Yeah.
I have no idea.
The only time that bit doesn't work is when everybody's like mid-30s, and it's like, this is no good. I need somebody who's young, and I need other people who are old. So it can be a bit tricky to relate to people. Here's a question for you, really. Have you found your voice? Because I haven't found mine. Your comedy voice.
No, I don't think I have. I think I found the type of room that I can play that I feel so comfortable in. that I know will. I'm not going to say I'm going to murder it every week, but there's rooms that I know.
You know your audience, yeah.
Yeah, I know my audience, where my material goes.
Do you know what your persona is? That's what I'm saying.
I think I'm a bit like you, storyteller.
Yeah,
Which the problem with being that storyteller in 5 minutes is it just doesn't work. When I did this set in front of all these older people, I was on stage for 12 minutes. Having the fun and the relaxing in that room was just that. When I came off stage, everyone said that's the best I've ever seen you do. So relaxed, so
was
much
that the
fun.
video that just went round?
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
And that's me, but I can't do that in 5 minutes. So I tried to do that in 5 minutes at Backyard, and
no, you can't.
So I had to cut that bit down, and then I started on doing this 90s nightclub in front of a room of fucking 25, 30-year-olds, and I'm just like, I'm getting I can look at the reactions in the front row, and I'm getting reactions from that, but I'm getting the shoulder laughs.
Oh, that's the worst.
Yeah.
You're no good to me.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I need the volume.
Yeah.
And I got to the end, I did the final punchline, and that got a really good laugh. I knew it would get a laugh, but I couldn't put the production value that I wanted into that. Sounds really wanky. Production value into that I did the other night, because I couldn't put sound on it. I couldn't in the other. If you've watched the other one,
do you put sound on it?
You're gonna have to go back and watch it, and because there's a whole dynamic to everything.
That's great. I've been thinking about that. Around with sound.
I introduced music, I introduced props, and I introduced an extra guest.
Oh, brilliant!
But I can't do that in 5 minutes.
Well, that thing I was talking about, the whole phone bit I do, it lasts about 5.5, 6 minutes, that story, and I do 4 minutes up front before I start it.
Yeah.
It can't be, and that's one of the reasons why I didn't work in Blackout. Apart from the fact that I'm shit, is that
no,
you need joke before you go to someone. Right, I'm going to quickly, because I actually start the story by saying I fucked up a relationship once and never even got to the first date. I'm going to tell you this quick story, then I'm going to go. That's what I say. So people aren't getting restless.
Yeah,
and they know that I'm coming to the end. They know that this is the final bit, and then and then I'll do the story. But that's because I've warmed them up with those jokes. If you just try and do a story in 5, I can't imagine it. Well, living proof of the Blackout, I can't imagine it working.
No, it's really difficult. But the difficult part for me is that's the point that I found that I'm most comfortable and most relaxed and have fun when I'm doing the proper story.
Or was it? I challenge you on this one, because it was your night. You were feeling more comfortable, and that's why it went well.
I went into that night, and the music bit and the prop bit, I knew couldn't fail.
Yeah, that's a lovely feeling.
I knew it couldn't fail.
That's a lovely feeling, yeah.
Because it was like a rug pull for everybody. And I did it in this room in the workshop the morning of, and I kind of played it out. Everyone seemed to enjoy it.
Have you seen Mo Gilligan's bit about Magic FM? And and about his mum dancing to it, and he does that. He does the whole start and stop music thing all the time.
Oh, okay.
So he's like, I'll put the music on again, and then he's dancing around to it, pretending to be his mum, and then he stops, and then he's like laughing, and then he's going, no, run it again, and then, but also everyone's all like getting into the music too, so they're like, yeah, it's like a double whammy.
It's weird, isn't it? But that's what the thing is. I found my ideal time is the 10-minute slot. But I know I've got to earn the stripes to get to the 10 by doing the 5s. But the problem is the 5s mean it's not really me. Or I've got to make the stories short.
It's a showcase of you. Yeah.
Yeah, I've got to make the story so short, and you miss out so many little bits of it just to get it under time.
Well, this is actually something I wanted to say on this podcast, which is completely forgotten it because it's fallen out of my head. No, which is that starting comedy, apart from those first few initial rushes of, I just like being on stage, is the hardest part of comedy.
Yeah.
Because like I said, look, on Wednesday, I ate a bag of shit. But I ate a bag of shit in my way of kind of shouting at the audience and just kind of being a bit like, fucking hell, this didn't work, ha, ha, ha. But the hardest bit is those first 50, 100 gigs. I wouldn't even say it's a gig count. I would say it's actually a time thing. It's probably that first year or two.
Yeah.
And you don't really know what you're doing. And it's all a bit weird, and it's hit and miss. And sometimes you're having real highs and real lows. But it's just weird, and you're doing 5 minutes, and sometimes it's a bring a show, so everyone's got their fucking hostage with them.
Yep.
And you know, it's in a shit venue, like above a pub or something. And look, all of the people who run nights like that, credit to them, they do a service for comedy. That's how you fucking learn. But it is so hard. And then when you start doing 10 minutes is easily easier than 5 minutes.
Yes.
And I was having done a few 15 minutes now as well. 15 minutes is actually fine. In fact, you get really comfortable, and it doesn't seem like 15. It seems like a 10, weirdly. But anyway, and why am I saying this? Basically, you have to get over that hump and break into the regular 10s. And then when you start doing, I'm not talking about you, I'm talking about anybody.
Yeah.
Then when you start doing paid gigs to audiences who've actually come along to laugh in venues which actually might have a fucking light and might actually have a proper sound system and stuff, you're suddenly like, oh, this is 1,000,000 times easier. Yeah. Like, it's actually 1,000,000 times easier. And open mic serves a purpose, but it's hard in its own way. It's weird.
Yeah, I think once you get to the point of you can do I don't want to say the word proper gigs, because some open micers try to put on proper gigs, but you do that paying
proper
audience.
gigs is a wrong word, but I know you know what I mean. Yeah.
When you do the paying audience, no hostages are held in that room.
Yeah.
It goes well. Even if it goes semi-well, that's better than smashing an open mic sometimes.
100%.
And you just go, this is what I want. But there's still part of me that goes, I need to serve my time doing these fives and going through this stuff and doing all of this. And it's not me trying to get ahead of the curve or anything. But it's so hard to go back and go, can I still make this funny?
I'm a comedian, and I'm only here to make people laugh and entertain. This is what I'm talking about being a purist. The which is such a wanky phrase. Hi, I'm a purist. But what I mean is, I'm not too worried about social media follows or anything like that. I want to be able to go on stage and smash it and be undeniable. I'm nowhere near that, right? But I know my aim. Yeah, funny's the only thing that should matter.
Yeah, it's annoying sometimes, because it's just like, so I've had people literally make a beeline for me, and I'm thinking, right, I'm taking that as a compliment, because you could just ignore it and walk away and not say a thing.
Yeah.
But if you come to me and said, I really enjoyed that. That was really engaging. You had me hooked. I was waiting for the next sentence. I'm like, okay, that's cool. So that means that there's something there, but I need to add in jokes. Because I've said this before. I did this routine that I've now kind of married myself to. It came out of pure I don't give a fuck moment.
That's the best place.
I went to an open mic night. Very good friend of mine. We're on the pub floor, and there were some tables put across by the window. And I was going to say to my mate, oh, can I just sit down for this one? And what happened later was that some of these chairs got moved to allow room for where somebody was going to be standing on stage. And I just took the microphone out and sat on the windowsill and said, I'm going to talk to you for 7 minutes. I've got no idea if it's going to be funny.
Yeah,
let's go for this. I just want to say these words. And everybody was like, go on then. Yeah. And I did it. And I came off stage, and there's a few people there went, that's a fantastic story. You just need some jokes in it. And I'm like, thank you.
But it does mean that you're likable. Yeah. And you are likable. Do you know what I mean? Some people go on stage and their persona is fuck you, and you're a little bit like, why are you being aggro? I don't want to see a comedian being aggro. Like, Bill Burr is a furious comedian, and he's angry about everything, but you're with him.
Yeah.
He's not screaming at you. He's screaming about something, and you're enjoying it together. You see a lot of comedians come on stage and they're a little bit like, what? I remember there was a comedian on the open mic circuit. He's got a little bit better now, but he used to be really confrontational with the audience. He would like put his foot on like a chair and lean into the audience. And every time I did a gig with him, I was like, oh, I hate this guy. And he's probably a nice bloke, but his whole thing on stage was fuck you. And I actually think if you're likable on stage, there's a massive benefit to that straight off the bat. Yeah. Anyway, I don't know.
I don't know where we were going. I can't remember what the question was.
No, I don't remember what the question was.
But that's the beauty of this thing. Is this is natural. This is just the way it is. So right, we're gonna have some fun questions now.
As opposed to the other bit of the podcast, which has all been very
quite serious.
Yes.
Yeah. So if you get over the hump, when you get over the hump, and you think,
if I don't quit.
Yeah, things go well, and then you end up doing a split bill show or your own show, or you get called for Netflix, or Comedy Central, whatever, and they sit you down and say, "So, what music do you want to walk onto the stage to?"
Well, I've already picked it because not only did I know this question was coming, but also because having emceed at a gig where you have entrance music and stuff, it's "Are You Gonna Go My Way" by Lenny Kravitz.
Nice.
And I actually thought I even actually had a little routine in my head a few months ago based on that tune. If I ever did an Edinburgh special, I would open with that, and I knew what I'd do around it.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a banger.
Yeah.
But you don't want too much of a banger.
No.
Because then people want to listen to the music, not listen to you. But it's a banger of an intro, but then it falls down to the verse, and that's a good time to stop it.
Yeah. Oh, I like that. I like that. So where do you want comedy to go for you?
Well, on the Comedy Collective, I don't know if listeners know, but the Comedy Collective is probably the biggest comedians Facebook group.
I think that's the only reason why half the people are still on Facebook.
Yeah. Oh, 100%. It's fucking propping up Zuckerberg's billions, yeah. And like when that closes, Meta will collapse and everyone will be like, what the fuck's happening?
Yeah.
But somebody about a year or 2 years ago said, what do people want from comedy? Do you want to be famous? And every response underneath it was, no, I don't want to be famous. And I was like, you bunch of fucking liars.
Yeah.
What are you on about? What? You don't want someone to go, yeah, have a TV show. You don't want someone to go, yeah, we'll pay you to do this theatre and you'll sell all those tickets. What? You don't want to do comedy at its highest level? Of course you do. Like, shut the fuck up.
Yeah.
You know, and so would I like to be famous? Yes. Right. I'm not deluding myself because, as I said, my only aim has ever been to go on to a wild fucking club night at the weekend and smash it.
Mm-hmm.
I've only ever wanted to be a good club comedian. But if someone said to me, do you want to be famous? Fuck yes. I mean, what the fuck? Of course, who wouldn't want to be famous? I mean, I'm not talking about Love Island famous. I'm talking about famous for having a skill.
Yeah.
Yeah. Not famous for fucking genetically looking great for fucking 10 years. I'm talking about, you know, would you like to be a famous musician? Would you like to be a famous comedian, a famous writer, famous poet, famous fucking speaker, whatever? Famous actor? Yes. And anyone who says otherwise is full of shit. You thought this was going to be the fun question. I'm just getting angry.
I love Angry Jamie. Angry Jamie's funny.
This is the thing. I'll get on stage and then I'll get angry and then I'm like, oh no, I've lost everybody because I'm just a mad shouty man. That's not what I want. I mean, Gary is very good at being mad and shouty and funny.
Yeah.
I'm just mad and shouty. That's not.
So you've also got a podcast.
I do. I have a 5-minute daily podcast.
It's never 5 minutes though, is it?
It's sometimes it is about 5 minutes 30, 5 minutes 40, but it's normally somewhere between 5 and 10 minutes. So it's allowed.
Yeah. So what's the thinking behind it?
Well,
what's the name of it first?
It's the Evening Almanac by Jamie Jackson.
Yep.
With Jamie Jackson, something like that. Just Google Evening Almanac podcast. There's no other podcast called that. And the idea behind it was, as I said, I nicked it from David Boyle's I'm Quitting Alcohol. But I was kind of like, why aren't I doing this? I used to do podcasting before. I had a podcast called The Early Late Night Review Show. Don't worry, long title. And I had guests and friends, and it was a mammoth thing. It was always like an hour or an hour and a half, and it was, you know, lots of editing and all that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And I just thought, no, I want to do a podcast where I just talk for 5 minutes, check in. It's like a daily thing. And the reason why is I'm able to talk. It will teach me the skill of talking without any kind of prompt or anything like that. It's basically improvisation, right? Not like, oh, imagine your hands are mops and you work in the Navy and you're, you know, fucking improvise. I hate improv comedy. Yeah. But it's more me just talking for 5 minutes off the top of my head.
Yeah.
And I actually listened to the first one the other day because I'm on episode 750 or 60 or something like that.
Fucking hell.
Yeah. No one listens, mate. Perennial underachiever. Like I said,
listen.
Perennial underachiever.
Not every day, but I listen.
Okay. All right. But well, thank you. You're that number one that appears on the screen. But I do it because it's a skill thing. But now it's got to the point where I fucking need it. It's genuinely my therapy. It's my share. I don't know if you've ever been to group therapy, but you do a little thing where they go, right, you got to share, and I actually am now dependent on it. If I haven't done it for 5, 6, 7 days, I am going mental. I need to do it, and I love doing it, and no one listens, and I'm doing it for me. Yeah, I mean, people do listen, but I mean, I'm talking, you know, the numbers are not publishable.
It's podcast numbers are a bit of a minefield anyway, aren't they?
Yeah, I'm sure loads of people are listening on the wrong platform. That's what's
That'd
happening.
be it. Yeah, you're just not collating them on whichever
Correct,
one. Yeah,
correct,
that's all the problem is.
Yeah.
And everyone's like, "Where is he? Where is this guy? I've not had a podcast for a couple of days."
Yeah.
So I always make the beelines for the ones which I kind of like they got something about comedy in the title, and it's almost like you giving a little review of what's happened before.
Yeah.
And talking through your thoughts on it, and I always find that quite interesting.
Well, sometimes it's just a premise. So you know what I said about using TikTok as a premise? I'll sometimes use that, and I will riff on it for 5 minutes or so, just talking about it. And sometimes you're like, you hit upon something, and you're like, oh, hang on, that's actually good.
Yeah.
So it's that as well. It's just, to me, and I don't want to saturate the market, I do not know why every comedian does not do this. It is just such a great exercise.
Yeah.
And look, I love podcasting full stop, which is why I've been doing it since 2016. But that daily one, there's less impediment to you doing it. Do you know what I mean? I bought a mic now. I didn't have a mic for years, but I'll sit down, I'll record it on Riverside, I'll publish it. The whole thing takes about 15 minutes. Job done.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah.
I'll put a link in the description for it as well.
Oh yeah, man.
Push
Cheers.
some people.
Cheers.
towards it.
And every now and again, I'll do a video one. Every
Okay.
now and again, because you can do that on Spotify.
Yeah. So, like on a comedy thing, because you've been around the circuit for quite a few years now, is there anybody you think is worth checking out? Any recommendations?
Oh yeah, I should have prepared better for this. I've got my mate who I want to talk to you about. Oh, he's a comedy mate, but he's also my mate. Called Joshua Robertson. He's a pro comic though, but he's fucking brilliant. He's disabled, so I have to bring him on stage and drive him to gigs and things like that. That's how we first got to know each other. And I did it just because I wanted to see the next level of comedy.
Yeah.
You know, see behind the curtain of what's going on. I've been to some great gigs with him, but I've become a really good friend of his. And I really like his company, and he's funny as fuck.
Yeah.
We have I have conversations with him where I'm crying with laughter in the car. It's really brilliant. But he is such an amazing comedian. And he's disabled because he was in a quad bike accident when he was 10. So he was an able-bodied, and now he's quite severely disabled in the sense that he can't walk without assistance, and his voice is quite slow and slurred and things like that. But because of that, his comedy is like very slow.
Yeah.
And people lean in a lot.
Yeah.
And he's got big, explosive punchlines, and he's just a master of timing. So check him out, Joshua Robertson. He's brilliant. There's lots of people on my mate Kirk Fontaine. I used to be in bands with him, and now he's doing comedy.
Yeah.
I didn't even know he was doing comedy, and I went to a show. That's it. Kirk Fontaine is his stage name, and then he got up on stage, and I was like, "What the fuck are you doing here?" Like it was completely mental.
Yeah.
That we just both dropped out of music and done comedy. But a lot of comedians do that. Matt Smith, I used to work with. I don't know if you know him as a comedian. He became a comic because he lost his band, basically.
Okay.
So yeah, Kirk Fontaine's very good. He's a bit of a rising star, so I don't know if he needs any help, but he's brilliant. And also, I don't know if you know, but the perennial guy on the open mic circuit is John Sharp. Don't know if you know him. I love John Sharp, and he seems to like self-sabotage quite a lot. With me and Sam Rose is another great guy. But me and Sam Rose were talking about it as well, that he won't do the jokes that we find funny. Because when I first started doing comedy, John Sharp, he's like an older guy, and he's a little bit like off the wall with his comedy. And there used to be a comedy club called Love Comedy in Old Street, which was anyway. And it was kind of an open micy place. And there was loads of, it was one of those pubs with all those weird objects on the side and stuff. And he just collected them all up. Like there was a bird cage and things. And he came on stage with all of this stuff. And he said, I used to be in a relationship, but she said I had too much baggage. And it was just stuff like that. But it's his delivery.
Yeah.
Because he's so off the wall as well. And he used to have this joke, which had me in tears, actual tears, where he would say, I used to be an old end of the pier comedian, and we all used to have catchphrases. And my catchphrase was chicken in a basket. And then he'd proceed to tell every joke and go, boo, chicken in a basket. which, yeah. And every time, like, it got funnier and funnier. And I saw him do it 2 or 3 times. And I was just like, but like by the time I knew what he was going to do and he went into it, I was like, this is fucking brilliant.
Yeah.
I felt like I was watching Billy Connolly or something. It was so good. And he's just dropped it. He's like, no, I don't like doing it. And he's got this other brilliant joke about rabbits. And he's like, no, I just don't like doing it. And he very much, I think, feels comfortable just fucking around.
Yeah.
But to me, I love what he's doing. And I'm like, I just want you to be,
a superstar.
Yeah, because if I ever had like a Russell Howard style show where I could invite comedians on, I'd definitely have him on. He's brilliant. So yeah, there you go. There's 3 recommendations for you.
Okay. On the proviso you're not quitting comedy.
It's touch and go, Mark. Yeah.
Maybe we can salvage it by giving you a joke.
Okay.
So for those of you that don't know and are new here, I like to set all the comedians that come on here a challenge to tell a joke from this joke book called The Little Book of Shit Jokes by Sid Finch. Here it is on the table. I know if you're listening, you probably can't see it. We definitely can't see it. Fucking. This is my comedy routine. Just too many words. But
visualize it in your mind.
Yeah, but the comedians get to pick their joke they want to tell, but only get to pick it by page number, not by words. So what they're going to get, I don't know. It could be utter drivel, as some of them have been. Some have been quite good. But think of Christmas Cracker. But
well, it's not going to be worse than I worked in the Gherkin building for 10 years and never got a corner office joke, which is fucking genius, but never mind.
If that ends up in here.
So even in there, too shit. It's in this next edition, shitter joke.
So I'm assuming you're going to take part. I'm not going to let you off the hook. I'd like you to give me a number between 5 and 95. And if you pick one that's already gone, we keep going until
69, dude.
It's already been done.
No, of course it has.
That was the first
fucking
one.
Comedians are idiots. Weatherspoons and fingering. Yeah, so
sounds like a bingo call.
Yeah.
Weatherspoons and fingering.
69, yeah. Very good. All right. 72.
72. I know that's not the year you were born.
No, I'm not that old.
That's already gone.
It's already gone. All right,
Yeah,
is it?
yeah.
Okay. 22.
It's already gone.
42. It's the meaning of life.
No.
Come on, no Douglas Adams fan.
It's a long one. It's a long joke, though.
Oh, God. All right, go on.
It fits the story perfectly. Right. The joke I want you to tell on stage is a teacher asks her class, what's the name of the tallest type of building? One boy raises his hand. Libraries, he says. The teacher looks puzzled. Why do you say that? The boy replies, because they have the most stories.
Trust me, that's not bad. I quite like that. I think if you tell a joke like that, you've got to start shouting, come on, at the audience. Come on.
That's a good joke.
That's good. Come on. Yeah, you got to really ham it up. You got to say it again. You got to go, right, we're going to do it again because you don't seem to understand what I'm saying.
Yeah.
It's going to have to be one of those ones which only becomes funny because you say it 12 times and people are like, I'm going mental.
Stories.
Get a little whiteboard out.
Yeah.
Stories. 2 minutes.
Premise.
Yeah. Yeah.
This is how a joke works.
Yeah. That's kind of what I felt like I was doing on Wednesday. All right. No, I'll do it.
Film it, put it on Instagram, TikTok or whatever, tag us in it and we'll share it with the world and you can compare it to other people's attempts.
Okay. I've got a gig next Wednesday or Thursday. I've got a gig on the 7th. So I
was going to say, don't do it anywhere that's remotely important. Please.
This is in Billericay. I don't think I'll be going back, so fuck it.
If that gets the biggest laugh.
Yeah. Do they have libraries in Billericay? I don't know.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
There's your punchline if nobody laughs.
Yeah, just to insult the intelligence of the audience. Yeah.
Did none of you go to school?
Yeah, I don't know whether that should be like an ending joke or an opening joke.
I don't know. The other thing where I always kind of say is that you want to shorten it, make it a bit punchier, whatever, however you want to do it, as long as the premise kind of stays the same.
No, yeah,
It'll be good.
Okay, great.
Sorry.
Yeah. This is the cost of coming on the podcast. It's like you gotta bomb even harder. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Okay.
But on a lighter note then, where can people find you?
So I am on all of the socials. which is at, which is that little at is
Squiggle.
squiggle A, mate. Squiggle A, I don't know if you know about it. Jamie, Jamie, Jackson, ATI. So Jamie Jacksonati, all one word.
Okay.
And that's me on the old Facebook, TikTok, Instagram, Threads. I'm big on Threads, actually.
Oh, yeah.
Mate, big on Threads. I left Twitter because it wasn't racist enough. So. So what are we going to do with all these immigrant guys? Come on! Everyone's like, boo. No, I left Twitter because I left it a couple of times. Right, I left it once because it was just a poisonous well.
Oh yeah.
And then I went back because everyone was like, "Fuck Elon," and I was like, "Well, fuck everybody else," just because I love being contrary. And it wasn't that I support Elon, right? I don't like his back to fucking work policies and all that. But what I was like was. Like it was all kicking off, so I was like, I want to be back on. I want to be in the center of what's going on, and then I just left again because it's like when Jack Dorsey was on it, it was just a poisonous well. When Elon's on it, it was just a poisonous well. But Threads is actually like pretty good, pretty arty.
Okay,
I like it, and I post a lot of jokes there. But yeah, Jamie Jacksonati, which I thought was going to be my stage name. Nah.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah.
You can find us on Instagram at Open Mic Comedy Pod. We've got a website, openmiccomedypod.com. Whichever platform you're listening to this on, please give it a like, follow, subscribe, and all that jazz. Gets us up the charts and gets all these people heard. And lastly, just want to say thank you for your time today, Jamie.
Thanks very much.
And for the rest of you, I will speak to you all very soon.
All right, ladies, yeah.